Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokemon community, discovering the 6 Pokemon on their Dream Team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, merry by name, merry by nature, otherwise known as Chazingdra, a host and commentator for the Pokemon Video Game Championship Series and a content creator. This week, seems like, in fact, we're going to be taking a stroll through the life stories of Pokemon in the Pokemon community, because I'm delighted to be joined by Koraidon. Cannot wait to take a deeper dive into you, Koraidon. How are you doing today? Fantastic. doing really well. So, sandwiches, you're a fan? Yeah, good. You enjoyed the events of Pokemon Scarlet? You enjoyed riding all around Paldea and Kitakami, Blueberry Academy? Good, excellent stuff. Really chatty and happy Koraidon here. Well, thank you so much, Koraidon. I think that's all we've got time for in your episode today. I've got the feeling that there's more going on beneath the surface here, Koraidon. Why don't you reveal what, in fact, we have in store for us today on the episode?
Ta-da!
Smoothly done. I thought we might have a situation there where you were struggling for like a good minute trying to get.
No. I'm a seasoned costumer, didn't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Freya Pearce, welcome to the show. Go right on, a little taster, I'm sure, of discussions about cosplays that we will be having. But Freya, TCG caster, Freya, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Delighted to be joined by you here. For anyone who's not so familiar with you, Freya, can you give a brief introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Freya Pearce. I am a competitive Pokemon trading card game player and broadcaster. I've been a competitive player since 2011. I've been a caster since 2016. I'm basically one of the people in Europe who's been doing TCG casting for like the longest, alongside Ross and Joe and Julian Scharf and David Hockman. Yeah, and that's my history. I've made top 16 at the World Championships as a TCG player twice. Once in 9th, bubbling out of top 8 and being the only one who did, even though I went 5-1-1. I'll probably talk about that later. And then 15th as well. So yeah, 2 times top 16 finisher.
Very impressive, and cannot wait to get to know all of these things and so many more a little bit better. Of course, I know Freya through casting. It's always going to be a good time when Freya is on the casting roster. Has a real ability to make people feel comfortable with whoever Freya is with. So really excited to have you on the show here. And also, wonderful to have you on because you're someone who is a fan of the podcast. So thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, it's no problem at all. It's really cool that you're doing this because there aren't that many people in the space that are like taking the time to actually go out and find out the life stories and what's going on with people in the community, like not just casters but also players as well. And it's something I really mega appreciate, and that's why I was even more honored that you asked me to be a part of the show. So thank you for that as well. It's a really cool thing that you're doing.
No, of course, it's that means a lot. I'm so pleased that you're getting a lot out of the show. I hope many more people are as well. I think this is the thing at events and also online. You rarely get the opportunity to actually talk to someone about them. So sure. Really pleased to be able to do that. And also you reached out a little while back to say that you'd love to be featured on the show, which was very flattering as well, to have that interest. So thank you for enjoying the show, and let's put on a good show today for everyone to enjoy.
Absolutely.
So let's get to know you a bit better. Let's discover your hand-picked 6 Pokemon for your dream team. Thank you for your openness with what you're sharing today, as I always say to my guests. So we're going to start off with your complex international family background.
Yeah, so I sound very British, and that's because I am, but there's a bit more to it than that. I was born to British and Brazilian parents. My dad is English and my mum is Brazilian. They met whilst working on the same cruise ship in Greece. My dad was a cruise ship photographer on board, and my mum was a general crew. And yeah, I have one older sister, Rebecca, who she's living in the US right now. She just finished a PhD at Binghamton University. She went to Cambridge. She's very smart. But yeah, I've basically moved around and been international like my whole life. I was born in London, so I was born in England. I've lived most of my life there. But when I was very young, when I was about 5 years old, I would say, in like 99, our family, we moved to Brazil for various reasons. I did most of my primary schooling in Brazil, so I'm fluent in Portuguese as well as English. I did most of my primary schooling there. Came back to England in 2004, where I lived from then to finish school there, university, and the whole shebang. Started my working life there until recently, at the end of 2020, I moved to Denmark to be with my then partner, the after fiance, now husband Tyler. He's Danish, so it was a lot easier for me to move here to be with him than the other way around. So now I live in Denmark. So there's a good chance I might become like a triple citizen in the near future, which is a wild thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said just then that, you sound British, and that's because you are, to the point that you managed to make me forget that you told me before that you now live in Denmark when we were organizing this recording and time differences. So, yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating to hear. So, okay, so you said you did your primary schooling in Brazil.
Oh, most of it, yeah. Apart from, so it was a bit of like a staggered thing. So schooling in Brazil works a little bit differently because in the Southern Hemisphere, the season's the other way around. So the school year in Brazil actually follows the calendar year. So your summer vacation is over Christmas. And they start a year later just because that's how they start. So when I went to Brazil, I was actually halfway through year one in England. But then when I went to Brazil, I went back to essentially like the equivalent of their reception.
Wow.
And then I did year 1, 2, 3, half a year 4, came back to England and went straight to year 6. So I never had a year 5.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
You you like have this parallel universe thing going on. You never did year 5. At some point, I hope in the future you can just enroll in some school and do year 5 just to just so you've had the experience. I mean, what crucial things might you have missed by not doing year 5? Might be crucial gaps in your knowledge that will have to be filled.
I mean, I ended up getting 9 A stars and 4 A's in my GCSEs, so I think I turned out okay regardless.
You know what? Maybe you don't need to do the year 5. Maybe actually we'll park that one. Yeah. Well, that's incredible. What's your overriding memory from your time in Brazil?
Positive and negative ones, I will say. Mostly positive in the sense that it gave me like a sense of like the world I don't think I would have had otherwise. And I especially have very fond memories of because we were in Brazil, but we were like quite well off in Brazil. We lived in like the nicer areas. Brazil is very much a contrasting country in terms of wealth inequality. Like the if you're well off, you can live very well, but the poor do not live very well at all. We were very fortunate in that regard. And I have a lot of fond memories of spending Christmases, especially by the beachside. That's a very common thing to do. You rent out like a beachside apartment, and I remember the turn of the millennium. We went to Praia dos Ingleses, which is a beach in English. It's a beach in sort of the city where we lived at the time, which is Florianópolis. It's down in the south of Brazil. And yeah, just spending the turn of the millennium there was that's something I always it's like a memory I'd always like come back to. The lesser fond memories were being bullied for not being good at football. That kind of put me off. Football's never been something I've been much into, and maybe that was a big part of the reason why. But mostly, positive family memories and food, especially. Oh my goodness, I miss Brazilian food so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry about the not being good at football. There are plenty of esteemed people who would fall in that camp. Let me assure you. What would be your favorite Brazilian dish?
Probably, I'd say the. Okay, no, it's a toss-up between two. So there's Brazil's national dish, which is the feijoada, which is basically a black bean stew with a pork meat, and until it's cooked until it's super tender and it's super nice. And then you have that rice and farofa, which is basically like a cooked toast spiced, not breadcrumbs. It's made out of like tapioca essentially. It's really nice. The other would be picanha, which is a kind of beef cut, which is mainly known in Brazil, but now because of online videos, it's become more well known. And it's like essentially the cap of the rump or like the top sirloin, and especially when you do cook it the way the Brazilian churrascarias do, and just in the barbecue style, it is like it's something as flavorful as perhaps a more tough cut of meat, but as tender as something like a ribeye. It's picanha is amazing.
Wow. We're filming just sort of approaching lunchtime, and that's that is no, I'm so glad that you said that. I will be having that in the back of my mind, I'm sure, for the duration of the recording. It's so cool that you remember what you were doing at the turn of the millennium as well. I mean, a big event, of course, and clearly it's etched in your mind, given that you wouldn't have been too old at that point. So that's fascinating to hear. And of course, your parents meeting, both working on a cruise ship in Greece, did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. What a romantic connection that they have. Okay, well, from romantic connections to the first Pokemon who's going to be connecting with your Dream Team, it's time to ask you what your first Dream Team member is. Now, for context, the aim...
Sorry, I went a bit too fast. Sorry.
That's fine. Little teaser, maybe spoiler rather than teaser, but the aim is not for Freya to build the best competitive team, but just to choose any Pokemon at all that are special to Freya in some way, and you've decided on your Pokemon in advance. I have no idea what you've chosen. Let's find out together. You can now reveal that plushie.
There we go.
Here
it's Natu. So my online tag is, of course, Xanatu, and then various different qualifiers. I think we've got VPR going on there right now. It's and yeah, it's funny because Natu and Xatu, they weren't like favorites of mine when I was younger, but it kind of like grew to be like big favorites of mine, sort of going up like through like later on, I guess. And I like another Pokemon I really like. Well, you can see like another Pokemon I really like is Lugia, right? And I think I just like Psychic Flyers generally, and I always and it's one of those things where I realized, I really love how these two are designed. I was torn between Natu and Xatu for my team actually, but I ended up going with Natu in the end because he's a very good shoulder companion. So they're just like,
yeah,
and cute little round ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Natu is a very, very what a wonderful presence to have on your shoulder, and it's almost pirate-like going from a parrot, but of course this is just a little hieroglyph bird.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I'm a huge fan of Generation 2, so great to see Natu there and discovering it in the ruins of Alf, and if you're able to get to that unique location,
that tiny little patch of grass.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. And then another thing as well is, of course, recently it's become a good card again because it evolves into Azatu, which is good as a partner for Dragapult EX in the trading card game. And I also another deck where I actually got top 32 with it at regionals was Lost March, and one of the cards in that was also a Natu that attacked. Not even a Xatu, like just the Natu was an attacker in that deck. So
there you go.
Nice there too.
Echoes of a couple of your favorite Pokemon just recurring. Yeah, and it's great when you have a connection to a Pokemon that also has that competitive utility. I think it just sort of elevates love that much more. Not that it's necessary, of course, but it just adds a little extra to that. Yeah. Psychic Flyers. Okay, so you're a fan of Sigilif as well?
Sigilif was one that actually grew on me, actually. At first, I really was not a fan, but like the more I got to use it, I felt, okay, actually Sigilif is pretty cool too. So yeah, it grew on me. Sigilif did.
Psychic Flying. Okay, this is all very interesting, paving the way to asking you what Pokemon you think you would be towards the end of the episode and whether that will play a factor. But anyway, okay, Natu, welcome to the team, little round buddy. Fantastic. Yes. And from there, we're talking about, appropriately, you discovering Pokemon and, in more detail, you moving to Brazil.
Yes, so we actually had to go like a little bit further back. So, not too far back, but just before I moved to Brazil, I went on my first trip abroad. Our family we went to Disneyland. We went to Florida, and the lines are very long. And what my mum decided would be a really great idea would be to go to a local game store and get me and my sister some Game Boys with games to play and keep us entertained whilst we were waiting in the long lines. For me, that happened to be a Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red and the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Deluxe, and my sister got Pokemon Blue, and it was like I can't remember the full name of it, but it was like one of the Looney Tunes games for the Game Boy Color. I think it was called like Carrot Mania or something like that. Someone will correct me in the comments, I'm sure. And yeah, that's how it started. I've been playing Pokemon since then and really enjoyed the video games. When we got back to England, the card game was a thing by then because that came out. All the Pokemon stuff came out a little bit later in Europe compared to the US. And I used to play the trading card game just casually with my sister. We've got the Fiend decks. We played against each other all the time. That carried on when we moved to Brazil. My one lasting memory from that, which my sister will never forgive me for, was I did a terrible trade. I think we had like a really nice Gyarados card that I traded for something not as good at all. And I don't even remember why I did that trade or anything like that. Or anything like that. But yeah, my sister never quite forgave me for that one. But we still played casually. But yeah, Pokemon has kind of followed me ever since. The card game not as much because my competitive interest only picked up later, but the video games absolutely. I played all of them when it came out, so I've never. Some people I know they kind of fell off with Pokemon and they picked it back up later, but no, I've been playing since Gen 1 and I've been playing it ever since. Probably the one I connect the most with is Generation 2 because with Generation 1 I was quite young when I played it, so I probably didn't fully understand what I was doing. But Generation 2, I actually started getting Pokemon to level 100. I played Silver so much.
Yeah, I am exactly the same. I think Generation
Oh, there you
1...
go.
Generation 1, yeah, I think I was slightly too young for when it came out, but then Generation
Yeah.
2 was the sweet spot. And then I went back and enjoyed Generation 1 more, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, wow, so that queue time must have flown by when you were playing Pokemon in the lines at Disney World. Oh, my goodness. I really hope that Looney Tunes game was called Carrot Mania, because that's the most hilarious name. And given that you were playing in the US at that point, and as you say, we got them in Europe a little bit later on. I mean, one of the first people then to come back to Europe playing Pokemon, potentially.
Yeah, possibly. And it's funny. It's something I was just thinking about, or I thought about a couple of times before, where because the thing is, I can't remember the exact time when we went over. I think it was either like the end of '98 or the start of '99, but definitely it would have been. We would have been playing Pokemon before, like a lot of people in Europe did, and we didn't think much of it at the time. But like, when I think back, I was like, oh, I guess I wasn't. My mom was an accidental trailblazer. Thanks, mom.
Yeah. We have you partly to thank for the crows coming over to this country, so or to this continent. So thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Freya. I see. Okay, and a video game fan, sort of originally, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then the trading cards came later. I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that sort of advent. I see. Okay, and then Disney. Have you been a fan of Disney since childhood as well?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up with the films, right?
Yeah.
My mum and dad got like it's a very classic kid thing, right? You put on a Disney film for the kids. Lion King was one I watched. Was one I watched a lot when I was younger, which is probably going to become relevant in a later topic. but yeah, all the Disney films we had a bunch of the videotapes growing up, and like mum and dad, yeah, they put them on for us all the time. So yeah, that's really why I went to Disneyland, right? It's a classic kid thing.
I also love The Lion King. That was a go-to when I was younger. I think my favorite Disney film when I was younger though was actually The Little Mermaid.
Oh, that's a great choice.
Yeah. I did find
also very relevant Danish story.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I did find Ursula the Sea Witch quite frightening when I was younger.
Understandable, very understandable.
Yeah, which is rising out the sea, all massive. Hans Christian Andersen, of course. Yeah. I'm sure there are plenty of Disney films that have taken Danish inspiration.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. What are a couple of other examples of that?
Well, not so much Disney, but of course, Swan Princess, right? The Nutcracker. There's a whole bunch. I would like struggle to even like name all of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. All these stories and the way they infuse our upbringing. Okay then. So now it's time to move on to the second Pokemon. Who's going to be joining Natu on your dream team?
So it's going to be another Gen 2 Psychic Flyer. It is going to be Lugia.
Of course, Lugia. Now, I've always seen you also, there's quite a relatively big Lugia plush that I've seen you carrying around before as well. So talk to us a little bit about your interest in Lugia.
So it goes back to what I was saying earlier with Pokemon Silver, right? Pokemon Silver is where my love for Pokemon really flourished. Lugia was one of the first Pokemon I ever got to like level 100. I've always like sort of loved Lugia's design, and like Lugia's always meant a lot to me for that reason and many others. So it's just always been a Pokemon that's been close to my heart ever since like I was very young. So simple as that.
Yeah, also Pokemon Silver, it's a real trial to find Lugia in the Whirl Islands, I remember. And you just sort of, you're going through all four of them. I remember the time I found it, I was just buzzing. And so I think that adds to the love of Lugia as well.
Yeah, very much so. Although it's funny you mentioned that, because I remember, playing Silver and raising Lugia's level 100, but I don't remember specifically going through the Whirl Islands. It's like I have more like general like memories of playing through the games and all that, and a lot of memories of like replaying through like the Elite Four and like beating Red over and over again, especially just to get to that level grinding, right? But if I were to think back to actually when I caught Lugia for the first time, that weirdly I don't remember. I just remember that I erased with level 100, and it was Pokemon very close to my heart.
Yeah, first one you got to level 100 as well. That's level 100 Lugia. That's so exciting. Yeah. Well, a very valued member of the team, absolutely. And don't you worry, I too have the Lugia representation. Yeah. Silver was my the version I had rather than Gold as well. Excellent stuff. So Natu and Lugia. The difference in size is quite dramatic, but the same
Yeah,
typing
just a bit.
and the same generation. So
Yeah.
we're going to swoop over from those two flying types to moving back to England now and your other interests.
Right, yes. So, basically in 2004, I think I already mentioned briefly, we moved back to England because basically it was a decision that my mum and dad took on the basis of it was probably make more sense to finish my education here and given everything else. So, yeah, that's what we did. And yeah, this is where some of my other interests started to flourish as well. So, around about this time was when I actually discovered the furry fandom for the first time. Like a few years later, like it's just through a DeviantArt stumble, basically, and just something that it's a big part of my life. And honestly, I technically speaking, I have been a furry longer than I've been a competitive Pokemon player. I discovered the furry fandom around about 2010. There was an online friend group that I kind of like stumbled into. We were all like, we all made like dragon characters and such, and it was a very fun time. But I didn't become a competitive player for the trading card game until 2011. But it was something that I always kept very secret from a lot of people because, especially around about then, to some extent now, but more so back then, furries were basically the internet's punching bag. And as sad as it is to say, a lot of it was because like furry is one of the most outwardly queer fandoms out there. Like there was a lot of gay, lesbian, bi, trans people in furry because that's the nature of the kind of like fandom it is. It's a very creative like fandom about self-expression and the characters you create and like the art that you do rather than so much following, oh, I am a fan of this thing. And so like a lot of people, especially through experimenting with their own identity through creating characters and expressing themselves that way, found themselves through the furry fandom, myself included, which I'll go into later. And because of that, furries are basically internet punching bags for a long time, especially in like the late 2000s to like early 2010s.
Thank you very much for explaining a little bit more about that because I think it's so important that we make sure our ideas around all these things are continue to evolve and thank you for dispelling some myths there. Okay, and you said you're going to go into furries later on, but you also mentioned in the notes that you sent over to me before we recorded your interest in music and also Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with Formula One first. You don't get to grow up British Brazilian without Formula One influence, right? Literally two of the biggest and most successful countries in Formula One, and being Brazilian especially. I don't know how many people. I don't know if you or how many people at home will be familiar with the name Ayrton Senna, of course, a very absolutely legendary.
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not so familiar with Formula One, but the big names. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
So Ayrton Senna, like a legendary driver, really was one of the people who, along with like Pelé and a few others, really elevated Brazil on the world stage as a competitive athlete in a sport. Won the world championship 3 times. Was like mythical aura to him, especially given that he died during a race. That was on May 1st, 1994, which was literally only 21 days before I was born. Like my mum watched that race and was pregnant with me when Senna died. So although I'd never been like alive at the same time as him, mum has told me about that and about how much of an impact Senna left on Brazilian culture and Brazil as a whole, especially, and is someone that I've always had a lot of respect for and idolized in that regard. And along with that, my mum being a big fan of Formula One, as a lot of Brazilians are, because of the legacy of Senna and other Brazilian drivers. Formula One is something I've always followed as well, and motorsport in general, I just love following. Formula One is, I guess, the main one, but I enjoy watching, endurance racing as well. The 24 Hours of Le Mans was just recently. Along with that, it's great fun. Rally. I also, one of the other big games that I played growing up on the PS1 was Gran Turismo, and so a lot of like sort of car love developed from there as well. I played a lot of that growing up. So like Japanese sports cars, especially supercars, are a big fan of. So big love of motorsport in that regard.
That's such an interesting connection that you have there with your mum watching. What, 21 days before you were born?
Yeah. Okay. The 22nd of May, and that race, it was at in Imola in Italy, and that was on the 1st of May that same year.
3 weeks exactly. Wow. That's Well, I totally see where that would come from, and great that you've been able to continue your interest in the sport. But then from sport to music.
Yes. So that was a bit of like a late discovery. Like I did, there was some music taste I had like growing up. But I wasn't like when I was the first time I really got into music a bit more was say it was around about the time I moved to Brazil, and admittedly, my three first favorite bands were like this to get this lineup were the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and Gorillaz.
Oh,
those were my three.
Love it! What a selection! Really great tunes coming out from all of those. Wow. Okay, tell us more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was just me. Those are just kind of like the bands I latched onto. But my love of the music that I'd say I listen to most now, and the music that I also like write and play, came a little bit later through another like long time held hobby of mine that I still enjoy but don't really do as much anymore, which is Guitar Hero. So when we moved back to England, I tried out Guitar Hero when it just came out at like a demo stand at a store. Really enjoyed it. So I got a copy for myself. Got pretty good at it. I'm not quite as good as some of the people you see online now, but yeah, I managed to 5-star through the Fire and Flames on Expert, if that means anything to anyone watching. That was probably one of the hardest songs on Guitar Hero 3, and I managed to get 5 stars on that. So I was pretty decent. But with that came like the love of like rock music especially, and also an interest in playing the real guitar. So when I was 13, I think, or 12, I got my first real guitar, and I started writing music. I've written like 3 albums worth of stuff. I just not really published any of it yet, but I have so many ideas for songs in my head. I've written a lot, and a lot of it is inspired by those sort of music influences from very early on, but also like the rock tunes, a lot of the Guitar Hero setlist bands, and also Crush 40, who were the band that did the some of the well-known songs for the from the Sonic games. That style of almost like sort of cheesy, but also very much game soundtrack sounding like a hard rock is a big influence on me as well.
Oh wow! I really hope that you do at some point get round to getting those songs down and recorded for people to enjoy, because it'd be fascinating to hear.
There are a few which I did record, but the recordings are a little bit old. I'd like to sort of like do them again at some point. But yeah,
how would you describe your genre of music?
So I would say, basically a lot of it's influenced by progressive rock and metal, especially, but perhaps with some a little bit of scale back length and with influences from some of those other things. One of the musicians that means the most to me, I'd say, like right now is and for some time period, is Devin Townsend. He's a progressive metal musician who's done like all sorts, had a prolific career both from his own band Strapping Young Lad and as a solo artist doing all sorts, and he's definitely one of my biggest inspirations for a good long time now. So yeah, a lot of inspiration from that game soundtracks, but also progressive rock and progressive metal, I would say, especially, and some influence from classic and hard rock as well. But that's kind of my ballpark.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool. And the fact that Guitar Hero was your way in as well. I mean, what you said about the difficulty you played that didn't mean too much to me, but yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's incredibly impressive. I'm sure that you still have some of that Guitar Hero skill lurking in you. Sure, you can still compete with the people who are making videos about it today. So let's go from there. Let's jam all the way over to your third Pokemon on your dream team. You got Natu, you got Lugia. Who's going to be number 3?
So I think number 3 is going to be the Midnight Lycanroc.
Okay, specifically Midnight. Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah. I guess some of that is some of the furry appeal, right? Like werewolves are cool and all that, but it's just not a Pokemon that I really like the design of. And it's like again, I don't want to give a spoiler, but it'll tie into like something else I want to say later. But I just think werewolves are really cool, and I loved when I first saw Midnight Lycanroc's design. I was like, oh, I really vibe with that a lot. So yeah, just the Pokemon I really like.
And you've tied that into your previous topic so masterfully, given you were just talking about rock music. Lycanroc, is there rocking away?
Purpose,
well, there you go. Yeah, you see, these connections just come out of all kinds of places. Midnight Lycanroc. I see. Okay, so it's to do with the sort of vibe of the Pokemon. Have you had do you have fun experiences of playing with it, either through the video games or the trading card games?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So a couple. So whenever I've been able to, I've had it as a part of my team in Sun and Moon, but also in it was either Sword and Shield or Scarlet Violet. I can't remember. I had Lycanroc on my team as well because I've just always thought it was a cool Pokemon. And then when it was legal, one of the decks I played a lot and had a success with, not quite to a massive level, but at some smaller tournaments, was Zoroark GX with Lycanroc GX. So Zoroark was the deck I played a lot as well. So definitely like a lot of that love coming from that there as well. That was a deck I thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh, really cool. Just briefly, for people who aren't so aware, including me, how did those two Pokemon tie up together well in that deck?
So the thing with Zoroark GX was that it was so flexible as an attacker and a draw engine. You could partner with lots of different things. This was so yeah, let's give some background here. Tord Reklev, who is probably one of the best Pokemon players who have ever existed, is still like crushing tournaments now. He pioneered Zoroark GX as like a baseline for an archetype. He initially partnered it with Golisopod GX. The idea being because Zoroark GX is basically a Pokemon that has the ability to draw extra cards. So for each one that you had out, you could discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards. So you had the consistency there. And then it also just did solid damage with its attack Riotous Beating, because that did 20 damage for each of your Pokemon you had out. So you were just doing a consistent 120 damage whilst drawing a bunch of cards every single turn. But sometimes you needed a little bit of extra power. So there were different support Pokemon you could pair it with that worked really well. One of them was Golisopod, but then later on, what was pioneered was pairing Zoroark GX with Lycanroc GX, because Lycanroc GX had like a really, really devastating attack that did 50 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon on the bench. It was a once per game attack. It was a GX attack, which is basically like the TCG version of Z moves from Sun and Moon. So that was really powerful. And then its ability as well was super strong. When you evolved into Lycanroc GX from a Rockruff, you had the ability Bloodthirsty Eyes, and you could use it to bring up an opponent's Pokemon on the bench. So you had that combined, like, one off like your finishing move on a threat that your opponent has. You could also use it to bring up something on your opponent's bench that would otherwise be safe. So although it's not like obvious synergy, essentially Lycanroc GX completed some of the gaps that Zoroark GX had as just a standalone like attacker.
That was very well explained. Thank you for that summary, Freya. Actually, I found myself tuning into the NAIC TCG finals.
Oh yeah,
I enjoyed sort of getting to know a little bit better how the game works. So always interesting to hear a little bit further context onto all of that.
I would like to think in my now, good grief, 8 years experience as a TCG caster that I've gotten at least somewhat okay at explaining complex TCG concepts to people who aren't as familiar. It's almost like it's my job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I just thought of another association really, really important that I only made the connection now. So Lycanroc GX was also important in another deck where it was paired with Buzzwole GX. And I talked about this recently at the closing for the Bologna live stream, but my favorite ever moment casting was the finals of the 2018 Latin American International Championships, where it was like skipper a bunch, but like the end game situation was Diego Hafshi was against Azul Garcia Griego, so they were 2 players in the finals. They were both playing this Buzzwole Lycanroc deck, and Diego played a card called N, where both players shuffle their hands into their decks and draw a number of cards equal to the number of prize cards they have left, which is like a mechanic in the trading card game where it's basically how you determine who wins. It's you put 6 from the side 6 from the top of your deck to decide at the start of the game, and you take 1 each time you knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon. And he needed to draw a Lycanroc GX off of those 2 cards after playing the N to win the game. And he did it. And when he did, I screamed, "He gets the Lycanroc!" And it was like one of the most hype casting moments at the time ever. And certainly for me, it was such an awesome moment to be a part of, especially because Diego was Brazilian and that was the Latin American Championship. So that was a win on home soil, and the crowd went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. The energy and the passion in the Latin American community is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, what a connection. Well, what a great number of connections there. And with Lycanroc's howls echoing in our ears, let's move over from there to, tease us up quite well for competitive TCG playing, including your Worlds runs.
Yeah, sure. So the year's 2011. I'd been back in the UK for a while now. I was out of secondary school. I was doing sixth form. There was a really cool independent video game and card game shop that opened up close to sixth form and I would go there occasionally on breaks to buy video games. One day I walk in and one of the staff members is there opening packs of cards. One of the staff members that I made friends with, and I think to myself, I remember this, because I still had like a mini collection of cards from like stuff I opened up from before. So I decided to do some myself. So I bought some packs, opened them up. I was like, oh, this is really fun. They hosted like a mini casual tournament there. I built a deck for that. It wasn't very good. It was just basically, I don't even remember like what I played because it wasn't like an archetype. It was just what I had put together. And then from there I discovered that official tournaments are a thing, because I remember reading about them a while ago, but I never really knew how to actually participate in them myself. But at this point I was like a little bit older, I had more means to actually research these things. and I found out about a state championships going on nearby in Nottingham. And so I talked about it with my dad, and I went there with a friend. Didn't do very well. I played Gothitelle Reuniclus at the time, where so Gothitelle was a Pokemon where when it was in the active spot, it stopped your opponent from playing item cards, which are kind of trainer card. They're cards that you used to like basically play the game, set up your Pokemon, and all that. And then Reuniclus let you move your damage counters around your own side of the field, so you could essentially move them to something where you don't mind the damage counters being on, and then heal off with healing cards. It was basically a locking and tanking deck. But my deck list for that deck wasn't very good because it needed some pretty expensive cards to build it in the most optimal way, and didn't have access to those. So I didn't do very well. In fact, in my first ever tournament game, I lost before I even got to draw a card, because back then you could attack going first, and I got paired against initially someone who was just as new as I was. It was also their first tournament. But then there was a repair, and I got paired against Ben Stewart Armstead, who was probably one of the best players in the UK at the time. And he went first, and he got a turn 1 Zekrom doing 120 damage to knock out my lone Pokemon. And so I lost my first ever tournament game officially before even getting to draw a card.
Well, look at you now. I mean, clearly, it didn't have too much of a bearing. I see. Okay, wow. And thank you for explaining the Gothitelle and Reuniclus there as well. So your love started with the games, and then as soon as you looked a little bit more deeply into the cards, you really enjoyed getting into the TCG. Had you got involved in other trading card games or not?
No, okay. Never, not at all. Like Pokemon's pretty much like the only one, and even then only ever casually playing with friends. So just like a whole new world to me. And the thing that appealed to me the most about it is that I never really had like an outlet for competitiveness before, like something where I could actually flex my to flex a competitive itch of sorts. And Pokemon, the TCG was the first chance I really had to do that. And even though I ended that tournament with 2 wins and 4 losses, I still had such a good time, and I made friends with like a good amount of people there. So I made me think, you know what, I want to go to more of these. So I did. I even went to my first ever national championships, back when those still existed in 2012. That was when my friendship with Ross Gilbert really started first coming through and solidifying, who was a very, very well-known Pokemon caster and TCG player and content creator as well. And so, yeah, that was how that started. And I've just started, ever since then, I just started going to tournaments, and never really stopped.
Yeah, what an excellent showcase for how important the community is, even when you have a tournament run that doesn't necessarily go your way.
Absolutely.
It's all about the people who are there with you and inspiring you to continue and develop.
Yeah.
I'm also very pleased that you were able to find that outlet for your competitiveness, because you and I both were not expressing that on the football field. So yeah, it's
definitely not.
good to have some way of expressing that, and with the Pokemon trading card game. And yeah, wow, hearing about you all those years ago, meeting Ross, who now, of course, is a mainstay in the Pokemon trading card game community and beyond. And so I guess, it went from that first tournament that really didn't go your way. Did you notice a gradual improvement with every tournament you attended?
Well, eventually, yeah. It took me a while for me to find my feet. I had a few results where I got close. I think I was along the right sort of lines, but I was just missing that sort of extra edge. And then came 2015, and that was the first year I actually managed to both qualify for the World Championships, and I had the means to actually pay for the flight and go. So I went there. That was in Boston that year. And that year, although I didn't make the day 2 of the World Championships, because I was the only UK player to get close that didn't already have a day 2 invitation, because for those who don't know, when you play in tournaments throughout the season, depending on how well you do at the tournaments, you get championship points, and then depending on how many championship points you get, if you are high enough in the championship points ranking for your region, you get an invite. Back then, it's changed now, of course. You got an invite to the World Championships. We actually got to skip day 1 of the tournament. I only got a day 1 invitation, but I only missed getting into day 2 by a single match point, and out of the day 1 UK players, I was the one who got the closest that year.
Wow. Oh, that must have been a difficult pill to swallow, but also
a little bit.
You clearly didn't let it get you down, and it's all about how we respond to those things that don't go our way as well.
Yeah, getting so close, it definitely made me hungrier. And then so here comes the next season, the 2016 season, where I managed to qualify again. Went to Worlds, and I played that year Night March, which is one of the most competitive, well-known decks at the time. It basically revolved around getting Pokemon with the attack Night March in your discard pile using various different resources, and then the attack Night March did more damage for each Pokemon with Light March in your discard pile. So you want to basically just load up your discard pile with Light March Pokemon. It was Pumpkaboo, Joltik, and Lampent. They were the three. And you didn't even play Litwick to evolve into Lampent. Lampent was literally just there to fuel the extra damage, and you attacked with Pumpkaboo and you attacked with Joltik. And that was one of the big decks at the time, and that's what I played. During day one of the tournament, I played a very standard version of the deck, very similar to the lists that were around at the time. But then for day two, because with the world structure, the day one and day two structure, because they're technically separate tournaments, you can actually change your deck going into day two. So for day two, knowing that if I wanted to go big, I would probably have to take a little bit of a risk. I played a version of the deck that Tamao Cameron, who was a very good, well-known UK player at the time and now, came up with. We dubbed it Salty Box, and the reason why is because it was a version of Night March that played all the cards that essentially would make your opponent salty, but it was for good reason. It was basically a version of Night March that was built to beat the mirror match, because it had in it Latios CX, which was a card where it actually had an attack that it just did 40 damage, but you could use it on your first turn going first, because by this point the rules had changed and you couldn't attack on your first turn going first, whereas before you could. So you could use that, because all the Light March Pokemon had low HP, you could use that to cheese a win in the mirror match in a game by just, so if you go first, start with Latios, you can KO a Joltik or a Pumpkaboo and just steal the game that way. And then it also played Seismitoad EX, which was another powerful attacker at the time that stopped your opponent from playing items, similar to Gothitelle, but instead of being on an ability, it was on an attack. And basically the idea being in the late game scenario in the mirror match, you could use the end supporter, which is one talked about before, to disrupt your opponent's hand, put them to a low hand size, use Quaking Punch so they can't play items, and then you kind of steal the late game that way. Ended up not playing a single mirror match in day two of Worlds. But then I still end up going 5-1-1, including the last match I played to win it in theory for top 8 was an absolute nail biter. It was against Frank Diaz, who was probably one of the US's best and well-known players. So certainly at the time, I don't think he's playing as much now, but he's still very fearsome player, really good. And we win a game apiece, and we go into game 3. And it is we're very, very tight on time. It's very hard to finish 3 games in 50 minutes in the Pokemon trading card game. And so he says to me, look, we need to play lightning fast if one of us is going to win Worlds, which is totally not wrong. So we start playing lightning faster in game 3 to try and get the game finished. But during his fast play, he does a misplay where he accidentally draws 1 card too many off of the ability of one of his Pokemon, Shaman EX. And I only noticed because he did it, and then he played another card which discarded his hand and draw 7 cards, which was Professor Sycamore. But when he fanned out his hand in a discard pile, I noticed, hold on, that looks like too many cards. So I called the judge over, and I was right. He had drawn too many off of this Shaman EX, and he got a prize penalty for it, which I think was one of the first times he'd ever gotten a prize penalty. Like, it wasn't something I pushed for. It was just, like, I noticed this thing, and I let the judge do that thing. I won that game on the last turn of time, partially thanks to that prize penalty. And so I gave the thumbs up to all the UK people. They were like cheering and screaming, and it was all like, yeah, amazing. But then we get the final results sheet, and I even though I went 5 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie, I bubbled out top 8 cut in 9th place, and it still stings to this day.
I'm sure it does. Yeah. I mean, also, as you say, such a nail biter set, and the rush of relief and excitement you must have felt when you knew that game was yours.
Yeah.
And then just to fall short. Well, this is when you have a top 8, someone unfortunately has to be in that 9th position. Yeah. It's really disappointing. But still, I mean, a huge testament to how well you were playing that. And I know that I know a certain trading card gamecaster who I had on the show a few weeks ago, Pumpkin Amy, will be delighted to have a little Pumpkaboo shout out as well for that Night March attack. Yes. Really cool way that works. Okay, let's ask at this point, who's going to be the 4th Pokemon joining your Dream Team? Who's going to be joining Natu and Lugia and Lycanroc Midnight?
So I think it's going to be Milotic.
Very nice.
Yeah. So Milotic is a bit of a different one because there's a lot of trans folks who identify with Milotic in a weird way. And I think it's partly because of the aspect of, sort of starting as, not really feeling like your best self, feeling like you start like a Feebas, right? And then Milotic evolves into like, this is this beautiful sea serpent. And there's something that I think a lot of trans girls especially can relate to like very strongly with that. And that definitely applied to me as well. So Milotic definitely wasn't a favorite of mine growing up, but going into like transition, especially, I related to that a lot. And Milotic is also just a gorgeous Pokemon, so that's why Milotic.
Yeah, well, yeah, very very appropriate reasoning there. It's interesting that you found that connection to it through your experiences rather than through playing with it on your team, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Have you, since discovering that connection to Milotic, have you developed it further? Have you sort of explored playing with it in the games or in the trading card game?
Not really had much chance to play with it in the trading card game, sadly. There's been a few okay Milotic cards, but none of them have been good enough to make the cut TCG wise. I can't, like, my main memories is frustration with not being able to catch a Feebas to actually get to the point where I got Milotic. So I think eventually I managed to get Feebas some other way, and I managed to get Milotic. I was like, oh, it's so cool, I finally have this Pokemon. But I don't think I ever remember putting Milotic on my team in that way. So no, it's purely like the sort of relation association rather than the experimentation. But it's still, if I were to have a team now, I would absolutely love to have Milotic on there for that reason.
It's if for anyone who isn't so familiar, yes, in Generation 3, the debut of Feebas and Milotic, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, the games there's a route where there's a big river running through it, but only 6 of the tiles in that route will have a chance of providing a Feebas. And it's hinted at in the game in a very cryptic way, which makes it really exciting when you're able to work out actually how you go about finding this Pokemon. And then the struggles don't end there, because if anything, finding it is the easy part compared to then evolving it into Milotic, which involves Generation 3 introduced the Pokemon contests. Each Pokemon has a different sort of aptitude for a certain adjective. So there's cool, there's tough, and there's also beauty, as well as smart, and what's the other one? Cute. Cute.
Yeah. Cute, cool, beauty,
tough and smart, I think. And if you max out Feebas's beauty and then level it up, then it will evolve into Milotic, and that requires a whole process of blending Pokeblocks with berries. I love the Pokemon that you have to work really hard towards to get them to evolve, because it just makes it all so also worthwhile and really provides you with a special connection to that Pokemon, just like you have, Freya, with Milotic there. I see. Okay, well, I believe that we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our coming topic. So let's talk a little bit about you going from playing as a TCG competitor into casting, and then the pandemic and your transition.
Yeah, sure. So funnily enough, that Worlds run in 2016 came at the same time as I started casting. So I already mentioned Ross, right? Ross is a very good friend of mine. He and I and a few others were basically some of the only people doing casting unofficially at events at that time. So during 2015 UK Nationals, Ross was commentating for most of it. I joined him for day 2, because we talked about doing that before, where if I didn't make the top 8 of the Nationals, I would join him on the casting desk, and so I did. And so I was one of the people approached for interviews when it came to picking casters for in 2016, when they wanted to start doing the live streams in Europe, because they've been doing them in the USA for a little bit at that point, but they wanted to start in Europe as well. And so eventually through that, I was one of the people picked, and it was me, Joe Bernard, Ross Gilbert, David Hockman, and Julian Scharf. We were the original 5 crew of European casters who did that first set of official streams in Europe, which was the UK Nationals, German Nationals, and Italian Nationals in 2016. And so that's how it started. And yeah, I've been doing it ever since. It's something that I found always came naturally to me, maybe partially from my love of F1. I always imitated the commentators from those races, right? I think there's a video somewhere of me filming one of my toy model race cars, and then pretend commentating as if it was over a race. So I guess I always had it in me in that regard. But yeah, it's something that always I felt came super naturally to me, and something I really, really enjoy talking about the game and explaining the plays and everything. So that's why I did it, and unofficially before, and now in an official capacity for 8 years now, and it's been an absolute joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a win-win, isn't it? If you don't make day 2, then you can cast the event instead. And I love the fact that you were you would take videos of toy cars that you had and commentate over the top.
Well, I did it once.
Okay.
I didn't like it. It was more like I'm sure I did it for other things as well. But I remember, there's this one video. This is when I was still living in Brazil. It was like a model of a Dodge Viper. That's one of my favorite sports cars, and and I was like filming it, even though I was standing still, and I was pretending to be a commentator talking over like a race. So yeah, like I said, I guess I always had it in me.
Yeah, absolutely. And presumably, this is where the Viper comes from in some of your online handles. There you go.
Yes, indeed. So my main persona is a purple dragon named Viper, and that name does come from the Dodge Viper, indeed.
Yeah.
That was not a Gran Turismo thing, because that was one of the big cars in Gran Turismo on the PS1, and it was one I used a lot. So my love of that car came from that, and then that sort of followed me along with a lot of my online usernames.
Yeah. Well, there we go. It's all starting to come together.
And the VPR in Xanadu VPR comes from that as well, because just Xanadu was taken, so I needed something else to tack on the end. So I thought I'll just tag that on.
Okay. Yeah. We're a picture is starting to emerge. The jigsaw pieces are starting to fall into place as to the origin of all these things. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so from there into the pandemic.
Yeah. So a little bit before, around about 2018, 2019, I started having thoughts and feelings about gender identity things. It was very weird, because I had this idea growing up of what I thought trans people were, and because of that, I never thought I was one, even though looking back, it was obvious that that's what those feelings were. I remember watching this like one documentary with my dad about a army veteran who transitioned after leaving the army, and her talk about her experiences. And I remember watching that and thinking, I can't really relate to that. It doesn't make sense to me at all. But funnily enough, it was through the furry fandom and through friends I made there. Again, very queer fandom, a lot of trans folks in that fandom, and making a few trans friends and talking about their experiences with them. And they kind of made me realize that, no, hold on, like there are many different ways and reasons as to why someone might want to transition or to identify differently. And then it was a bit of like a moment, and that there was a very slow like progression of that. In 2019, I came out as and I want to go by she/her pronouns, and I think I'm trans to furry friends, because that was the circle I felt most comfortable talking about that with. And then eventually I built up the confidence and started progressing things enough. In February 2020, I made a post coming out to everyone, including the Pokemon community as well. I told a few people beforehand, to put friends in Pokemon that I knew I could trust to be cool with it. And then I announced that, and then a month later, a little virus comes over and kind of shuts the world down. And then essentially I started my physical transition during the lockdown, which I guess you could say in a way was like a blessing and a curse, right? It definitely makes things a little bit, it's almost like you come out and then you emerge differently. But yeah, the lockdown times were okay, but they definitely weren't the most fun. Like, not having that outlet to go to like tournaments anymore was not fun. I do have a distinct memory of in 2020 there was a unofficial online world championships that was hosted like as a community thing. I was asked to be a caster for that, and then in my first sort of like caster intro for that, my self intro as a caster was so drilled into my head. I introduced myself by my old name, by my dead name instead of my new one. I was like, wait, no, that's not right anymore. I've got to like rejig my memory. And then I did it again as well, but eventually I got used to it, because by that point I wasn't as used to using my new name, which my name Freya now. But then eventually the pandemic progressed through, and then at this point, Tyler was my partner. We met in 2019 at a furry convention in Sweden. Brexit deadline was looming, and we had to make a decision as to how we're going to live together, because at the end of 2020, it would be a lot harder for me to move to Denmark, or him to move here to Europe, him being Danish and all that. So I decided to move to Denmark in the end, and so I did that December 2020, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, yeah, what a lockdown experience that you had.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, wow. How did you decide on the name Freya?
It was a funny one, because some people, when they transition, I think they have an idea of what they want to be called if like they were the other gender ever since they were young. Because when I was younger, I didn't really think as much about that kind of stuff. I never had that in mind. So I remember distinctly, I was on a voice call with some friends, like going through different names, and then one of them mentioned the name Freya, and it was the first time I heard like a feminine name and I heard it, and I thought to myself, I can imagine myself going by that. And it also tied in very nicely with one band I really love is that they're a doom metal band called The Sword, and they have a song called Freya, which is a song I really really love. And when I made that connection and I heard my friend mention that name, I thought, yeah, you know what, this feels right. So I've been Freya ever since.
Nice. Isn't Freya also a Norse goddess who rides a chariot pulled by cats?
I don't pulled by cats, maybe. She's the goddess of like fertility and life and like a lot of that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, exactly. I'm googling this now. I'm pretty sure I learned that. Yeah, she does. She rides a chariot pulled by cats. So
wow.
if
I didn't know that. So today,
yeah, there you go. That I think we should make sure that that's how you make your entrance into any event that you're casting. Just on a chariot pulled by cats. Stars you mean to go on.
I mean, to be fair, I do have literally one of my costumes that I have, one of my characters is like a saber-toothed cat, and literally they hang out just around the corner there. So, we can make it happen.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. But then you'd also have to be in the chariot. Maybe you'd need a body double or something like that.
Need a body double. Need a body double, you're right.
Look, we'll work on the ins and outs of that at some point. I mean, do you feel that going through that experience over lockdown specifically, you said blessing and a curse.
I think I'm kind of ambivalent about it at this point. It was more like a thing where like it happened at the time that it happened, and that's just how it is, and that's okay. Like I don't see it in a particularly like, oh my god, this was actually really amazing, or this was really bad. It just it is just that's how it was kind of thing. That's about all I can say.
Yeah. My final question on this topic is: anyone who might be experiencing similar feelings to what you had back then before the pandemic, what advice would you give to them?
Talk to other trans people that you may know, if you know any, and ask them about their experiences and ask them about what they have. I'd say that. And there's one other very important thing, because this is the thing that held me back for a long time as well. Like I mentioned, when I watched that documentary, I had this like very specific idea in my mind of what a trans person was. Someone who like knew from like a very young age, like suffered their whole lives that, I know I was born in the wrong body. But that didn't really fit me very well. And I was umming and ahhing between the potential of, I think that this might be right for me, but I'm also worried about regretting it. And I had this idea in mind that coming out had to be this really big deal, and that it was, I had to make this like really big decision. But what no one actually, what no one tells you, or at least people would now, but what no one, I guess, what I never realized was you can literally just make adjustments in your life to present and identify a different way and trial them. Like you don't have to commit to anything. Like you can just literally ask a small group of your friends, look, I'm having these feelings. If you guys are cool with it, maybe could you refer to me by a different name or by she and her? And just by doing these like sort of identity experiments, you'll know very quickly if it's right for you or not in a very short amount of time. And there's no harm taken from that, right? That's the thing. You don't have to immediately jump into, I'm going to start getting some kind of treatment like hormone therapy or surgery. It's not like that at all. You can literally just experiment with identity and see if it feels right for you. And that's a step that anyone can easily take to try and figure out if those feelings are actually what they really feel, and if transitioning more is right for them, or whether it is more just trying to figure yourself out in another way.
Really fantastic advice. Thank you very much for that, Freya. So now we'll go from that to the fifth Pokemon that's going to be joining your team. So who's going to be there alongside Natu and Lugia and Lycanroc Midnight, as well as Milotic?
So I think it's going to be Archeops.
Okay, there are a couple of ways I could have written. You said Arc, and I thought Arcanine, and then I thought... Then you said Archie, and I thought, is it Arceus? But then Archeops, love it. Okay, tell us.
Another one that grew on me a lot. I always thought his design was pretty cool, but there were a few TCG associations that really got to me. There's been a lot of good Archeops cards. There was one that actually was so good it got banned because when it was in play, it stopped your opponent from being able to evolve their Pokemon. That was very, very strong, so that ended up being banned. And it's in one of the top decks right now, but partnered with another one of my favorites, Lugia. So Lugia Archeops is one of the top competitive archetypes right now, and the Archeops has this insane ability where you can use it to take 2 special energies from your deck and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Special energies being a kind of energy where they normally do a bit more than just, because with Pokemon cards, all of them have different attacks, right? But those attacks need energy to power up, and they all have a different energy cost. special energies are kind of energy where instead of just being matching to a specific type, they might have certain special effects like providing 2 energy instead of 1, or they might provide 1 of any type instead of just a 1 color. And so, yeah, being able to use Archeops to accelerate 2 of those in 1 turn to one of your Pokemon is incredibly strong. And Archeops is normally a stage 2 Pokemon because the way fossil Pokemon work in the trading card game, the fossil is treated as a basic, and then what actually would be like the basic is the stage 1. So Archon would be stage 1, and then Archeops would be stage 2. But the Lugia that's currently competitively viable, Lugia V-Star, has an ability that lets you bring out even evolved Pokemon from the discard pile once per game with Summoning Star. So you can essentially use it to cheat out 2 Archeops from your discard pile once per game. So the setup is you get 2 Archeops in discard pile, you get into the Lugia V-Star, use the ability, bring them out, and then use the special engines to power up a bunch of attackers that are really strong and win the game. And that the combination of really finding like the fossil design really, really cool. Just really awesome like Fossil Bird and thinking it was cool anyway. And then getting that extra connection from playing it in a trading card game is why I would have it on my team.
Yeah. I still remember the original sort of fossil item card in the trading card game.
Yes.
And the fact that, Omanyte and Kabuto were stage 1s. That's so fascinating to hear. Archeops is I love how vibrant that Pokemon is.
Mm-hmm.
And a fantastic card too. When you played through Pokemon Black and White, its debut generation, did you have Archeops on your team there at all or not?
I'm trying to think actually. I think I did. Yeah, I think that was like the fossil that I picked, but kind of the sort of I remember thinking it was cool, but like the sort of more of the attachment, I guess, only really like came later. Is like one of those Pokemon that, like many Pokemon in my favorites list, actually, with a couple of exceptions, it's one that I came to appreciate more later on.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, Archeops, welcome to the team. Now, before we reveal your 6th and final Pokemon, Freya, let's talk about right now.
Yeah, right now. So, I feel really happy with, especially the way the European casting is right now. We never had a official full schedule live stream for the European season the same way. There's been like unofficial live streams run for like a little bit. There's been a few regional streams officially. There's been internationals, but for the full season schedule, not as much until this season. So this season, every single regional championships and special event was streamed officially on the Pokemon, channels, and being a part of that and being such a big part of like the stream regional circuit felt very, very special. I feel like my casting is the strongest that it's ever been. Something that I've always struggled with and that I still struggle with now is, as you can probably tell from me being on this podcast, is I talk very, very fast, sometimes to the point where some people struggle to understand what I'm saying. So I try to make, especially when I'm casting, I try to make a big effort to slow down to make sure that people can understand me. And that's been a very tricky thing, but it's something that I've worked on, and I felt that this year has been my strongest year for it and for casting in general. The people that have been joined the European casting team have been great as well. Like Amy especially comes to mind. I know you had her on earlier. She is an absolute treasure of a person. I genuinely love her so much. She is an absolute wonderful person to have in the community, and a wonderful person all around, and a great caster who has worked. Something I really admire about her is how really, really hard that she's worked to up her game as a caster as well. You see that she puts the work in, and it's paid off immensely. So she's someone to have like a lot of admiration and respect for in that regard. So, yeah, having a fully streamed European season has felt very, very special. In terms of right now as well, I mean, that's Pokemon side. Well, actually, I should mention one other thing as well, which is I have not been to the World Championships since 2017. That was when I got top 16 with Mega Rayquaza. Didn't go to the full run there because there's less of a story there, but it was just, that was my other good Worlds run. But I've not been back to Worlds since then. I am itching to beat that 9th. Like, that's going to be like the chip on my shoulder until I beat that result. So this year, as well as casting, I'm going to be going to every single event where I'm not casting. Even if it's a special event, I'm going to be going as a player, and I want that Worlds invite this year. I have a score to settle with Worlds, and that's something that is very much on my inner focus. So yeah, that's the other thing on the Pokemon side. And then on the personal side, I just earlier this year in April, Tyler and I got married after being together for literally 5 years today. Today is our 5-year dating anniversary. So after we're all wrapped up here, we have a lovely evening planned together. I did ask him if he was up for making a little cameo appearance, but he said he felt a little bit shy. So I'm sorry you guys don't get to say hi to Tyler, but yeah, he has been one of the the single most positive forces in my entire life. I love him with all my heart so much. He has been there for me through thick and thin. We support each other when through the rough times when we need to, and there is not a single day that goes by that I don't feel incredibly grateful to have him in my life and be able to call him my then partner, now husband. So yeah, getting to sort of do that officially and get married earlier in the year, that was incredibly special.
Wow, how very touching. Happy anniversary to you, Freya. To you, Freya and Tyler. Of course, the time that you're listening to this is on the day of recording that it is Freya and Tyler's anniversary, but that's wonderful to hear. And it's fantastic to hear how happy you are with things right now.
Things are going very, very well. Like, in fact, we were just talking, of course, just before we started, that I just finished. I had a final interview for a job yesterday, and today I just got a call saying that I got that job, and it's an amazing job with a sort of a really great working from home schedule, which is something that I really wanted in like a sort of with good flexibility. So that's great. Today is a very, very, very good day for multiple reasons. Like mine and Tyler's anniversary, amazing job offer, and I get to have a lovely chat with you as well. So, really just the icing on the cake.
Very well. I'm thrilled that you're having such a fantastic day. And if anything, I now just feel pressure to try and sort of make everything live up to that. But that's fantastic. And a real pleasure to have you on the show. Also, remind me afterwards, I can give you a drama school exercise for helping with slowing down speaking tempo, if that would be helpful.
Please, yes, very yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep all of our fingers crossed for you on your journey to beat that 9th position at the World Championships as well, Freya. It feels like...
I don't want to be 9th again. I want to do better. That's the point.
No. That's what I said. To beat.
Oh, sorry. I missed it.
Yeah.
You're right. You said to beat.
You said to beat 9th. Yeah. No. To do better than that 9th position.
Yes.
Just
that makes a lot more sense.
to avoid any kind of ambiguity at the World Championships. Yeah, of course. No. Can you imagine if that's what I said? Freya, we really hope that you repeat that result that has stayed with you ever since. Well, I have no doubt that you have such an in-depth knowledge of the game, developed, of course, from casting as well as playing. That it's only a matter of time. Hopefully, Freya. But fundamentally, the foundations are all laid for you to be in the best position in your life that you possibly could be right now. You're really thriving, so let's hope that things continue in that direction. And a time to complete your dream team. Who's going to be joining Natu and Lugia? Lycanroc, Midnight, Milotic, and Archeops. Who's going to be number 6?
It's got to be Koraidon.
Yeah, okay. Tell us about
that. Yeah. Koraidon was basically just playing through Scarlet. I absolutely fell in love with that little goober. Like, how can you not, right? You just, for the second where you like first meet them in the games and you give them the sandwich and like they are just like so adorable, like charming and endearing as a partner Pokemon, and I just like love everything about them, and like the sort of the relationship they build with Koraidon was like one of my favorite aspects of playing through Scarlet, to the point where I literally got a costume before. Like, I mean, it kind of says it all, right? So I love Koraidon to pieces, and it's a Pokemon that very quickly shot up into my absolute favorite. So yeah, Koraidon's going to round out my team.
Yeah, what a nice ring composition as well. That's how we started with you as Koraidon, and now here we are with Koraidon joining your team. Of course, the character in the game is very endearing, and same with Miraidon. But do you think there was something else about it that appealed to you?
I think a lot of it was again the design, right? It's just really striking, the sort of the Scarlet, and especially like in the Apex build, right, with like the sort of head feathers and all that. It's also just like with Lugia, it's just such a cool Pokemon. You know what I mean? I absolutely like adore that design, and costuming as one is very, very fun as well. I can confirm. Some of you might have seen me running around at NEIC one of the days, and at Stockholm Regional. That was a good time, but yeah, just such a cool design. Absolutely adore that design as well. That was the other big thing, as well as obviously how endearing it was in the games.
A couple of legendaries on your team as well.
Yeah. I didn't want too many because like I have a lot of legendary favorites, but I wanted to keep it to at least like 2 maximum, to not be like too ridiculous.
No, of course, yeah, no. Well, the sky's the limit. You can have whatever you want to have on your team.
Sadly, Koraidon, there's been a couple of TCG cards for it that seem like they're just on the cusp of being good. but aren't quite there. The most success that it's had is as a partner to Roaring Moon in the Ancient Pokemon Toolbox deck, and honestly, it's mainly just in there to fuel the damage for Roaring Moon. So it's not even like it does have an attack of itself, but that's the closest it seemed to like success. Even though it's had some other cards, which in theory, could be something, but it just hasn't quite gotten there in the same way as like Miraidon, especially. Miraidon has had so many good and successful cards.
We've got a lot of love for the more ancient Pokemon, I feel, coming out from your team with Archeops and Koraidon, as well as Lugia. It's been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah, no, now you mentioned,
that's really interesting theme there. Okay,
and of course Natu as well, kind of inspired by the totem poles. Right?
Sure, yeah. No, I really like that. The Koraidon costume.
So, it was made by a very dear friend of mine,
Okay.
Luna, who also, if you saw Meowscarada or an Iron Valiant running around at NEIC, same person. So she made the Koraidon for me because I am not that skilled a costume maker. My husband is like Tyler actually makes fursuits for a living. That's like what he does. I do not have that. My skill sets lie elsewhere. So Luna made Koraidon for me.
Wow, well, shout out to Luna there. It's an incredible costume. Fantastic. Okay, so you've got your team, and it's Natu, Lugia, Lycanroc, Midnight, Milotic, Archeops, and Koraidon. Now, Freya, you're going to have to choose one of these Pokemon to be your partner Pokemon.
I think it's got to be right. You're just like it's one of those things where I almost imagine it as if there are a Pokemon that I would like to have as a partner on like a daily basis, like living my normal life. What would it be? And Natu just seems like a very easy one, right? Like just like a little shoulder buddy, and take them along with me wherever I want to go. I think it's got to be Natu.
Little helper there alongside for the ride. Well, there you go. Makes sense. Loved it so much that it's in your online handles, and
exactly.
So yeah, Natu, and that love of psychic and flying that you were talking about before as well. So. Fantastic. Yes. That's your partner Pokemon. And now, time to ask you, if you're a Pokemon, what do you think you would be?
So, there's technically two answers to this, because I did actually... I have made myself a Pokesona, and it is actually a Midnight Lycanroc, but her personality type is very atypical to what you'd think of a Midnight Lycanroc, because her personality type is basically she's just like puppy, right? She's just like this very sort of loving, caring, friendly kind of Midnight Lycanroc, very polar opposite to the stereotypical personality of Midnight Lycanroc in the games. But if I'm answering it more from what Pokemon actually think I'm the most like, I actually think it would have to be Gardevoir.
Okay, so there is that psychic in there. Talk to us about Gardevoir.
There is a psychic in there, but it's for a very specific reason. And actually, just before the show, I was talking about it with Tyler, because I wasn't 100% sure. I was talking about it with him. I was like, what Pokemon do you think I would be? And he said Gardevoir straight away. And when he said the reason why, it completely made sense, and I agreed with it. I am an extremely empathetic person. Sometimes, I must admit to a fault, I feel other people's emotions very, very strongly. I'm the kind of person who will go out of my way to help other people when they're feeling down. Again, something to my own detriment, and that's just because of how strongly I feel other people's emotions, both joy, but even that there's sadness and pain, and that's something that it's very much associated with Gardevoir as well, right? Being the embrace Pokemon, and how they feel the feelings of other Pokemon very strongly in that evolution line, but also having that sort of very sort of caring and motherly attitude, I guess. So Gardevoir.
That's really well reasoned. That makes total sense. And I hope that you also. I hope that you're learning to put yourself first as well, and to look after yourself.
Best. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Tyler's been a great help with that as well.
Good.
I'm working on it.
Fantastic. Well, what do you all think? Do you agree that Freya would be a Gardevoir based on everything that we've heard about her? Let us know in the comments below. I'm sure that Freya especially would be fascinated to read your thoughts. And speaking of you all, it's now time for questions from you all. I posted, as I always do, asking for questions for Freya. Thanks so much for the questions that you've submitted. I apologize as ever if I mispronounce any of your names or handles. So we're going to start off quite appropriately, I think, given that we've just been talking about what Pokemon you think you would be. This is a question from Helly Newfie. What Pokemon do you want to be?
I mean, probably Lugia, honestly, because being able to fly would be really, really cool. And I don't have anything else like other than that, but just like being able to be able to that powerful, like fly around, Lugia, and that's been something that I've had ever since I was like very young. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be so cool to be able to do that? And it's one of the things I liked about Lugia as well. So Lugia.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, it's not just flying. Lugia comes with all sorts of powers alongside. So
Exactly.
well, there you go. Very appropriate answer. Thank you for that question. Now, from VG caster Ben Kuriaku, a couple of really interesting questions here. So number one, what's the deck you've most enjoyed playing versus most enjoyed casting over?
That is a good one. Most enjoyed playing would probably be. It's actually not one of my world's decks. It would actually. I'd have to go back to 2012, where I won my first ever small tournament. I won a city championships, and that was with Ho-Oh EX, which is a Pokemon where when it's in a discard pile, once per turn you can flip a coin. If you've got heads, you can bring it back and then attach 3 different basic energies of different types from your discard to it. And what that enabled you to do was play a very toolboxy deck where you used the energy switch, which was an item that let you move an energy from one Pokemon to another, you basically use Ho-Oh to power up a toolbox of attackers. And I played it with colorless attackers because then the energy types didn't matter as much. Including with a stadium called the Spursha City Gym, which buffed the HP of colorless Pokemon. And that was the deck I won my first city championships with. And I played a lot of Ho-Oh during that time. It was also the deck that I kind of engaged with and met through one of my best friends with, which is Jake Wolvin. So that was really awesome as well because he played Ho-Oh a lot too. So yeah, I would probably have to say Ho-Oh.
Yeah, I love the Gen 2 love that's coming out as well in your episode. Ho-Oh there, as well as Lugia. That's really cool ability. But now also what Ben asked is, versus what you most enjoyed casting over in terms of decks?
So I would find it hard to pick a specific... Because when I think of things I've enjoyed casting over, I think of specific matches rather than specific decks. Like there isn't... I struggle to think of like a specific deck where I watch what it does and think, oh wow, this is like so cool. So I guess I would have to go back to that 2018 finals casting over Boswell Lycanroc just because of like how that game played out and like the it was a very interesting mirror match too. And I don't really have much better reason than that. So yeah, I'll say Boswell Lycanroc, but it's tough to think specifically of like a deck archetype that casting over is really fun in my mind.
No, that's a fantastic answer. That makes total sense. Really interesting insight there. And now another question from Ben.
Okay.
You've cosplayed as Koraidon.
Yes.
Which Pokemon would you want to cosplay next?
Very, very good question. It probably would be Midnight Lycanroc, actually. I think that'd be very, very fun. And I know there's a Pokemon like a lot of furries I really like as well. Like, and I imagine do like the sort of like the droopy arms pose would be quite fun, right? And werewolves are cool. So yeah, I think it'll be Midnight Lycanroc next.
Luna, if you're listening, I hope you're taking note.
She has said she, generally speaking, doesn't like making more like canine style like costumes, like for like Pokemon or otherwise. Lycanroc is an exception.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you did give it. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. And our final question from Eve Dealing: what's your favorite thing about Kingler?
Probably. And I saw this question in advance, so I had time to think about this. It was the episode where Ash won a match in the anime with Kingler. That was really fun. Like, and the bond between Ash and Kingler in that episode, I really enjoyed. So I'd say that was I watched the anime a lot with my sister when I was younger, especially, and I have very fond memories of that. So that's what came to mind with Kingler.
Now, why has Eve been asking about Kingler specifically here?
I legit have no idea. I think Eve is a dear friend of mine, and both in both senses of the word. And I had no idea. Maybe I guess she likes Kingler or she wanted to ask something funny, but I legit don't know.
I see. Okay, yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. I didn't know if the connection with Kingler came from you or from Eve, but right,
No,
I see.
No, not at all.
There we go. Well, thank you so much for your really interesting questions there. If you want to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, then keep an eye on my socials on X, my personal account Chazingdra, as well as the podcasting account Chazingdra Chats, where I post the questions. I'd love to hear what you'd love to hear. All right then, Freya. So we've heard a lot about you up to now. What's next for you?
I guess like I just mentioned, right? My 2 goals are simple as cast worlds, win worlds. That's it. Two goals in a nutshell. And I think it's going to be tough to get there for both of them, but I feel like I can do it. So that's going to be what I'm aiming for. So it's going to be that plus continuing to go to tournaments, enjoying casting, going to more furry conventions as well, because that's still something that's my other big hobby right outside of Pokemon TCG, and maybe finally get some music published. Who knows? I think it would be nice to share what I have in regards to that with the world. So I would say that those three.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it feels like a very sort of appropriate day to be asking you all this on a day where you have that job offer and there's so much in store. So keep a close eye on how the coming year and beyond goes for you. Another question I've just thought of that I'd love to know: at what point did you find yourself getting more involved in TCG rather than playing the video games?
Well, it was 2011, right? Because I think it's not necessarily that I picked TCG over video game. Like, my level of interest in the video games always stayed the same. Whenever each game comes out, I play through it, but I was never interested in the competitive side. It was just that I discovered that with TCG, I had this competitive interest as well. So, like, you can always see it as like my interest levels for like the trading card game and the video game were kind of like both like the same as a casualty. Probably even at some point, maybe more the video game was a little bit more there. And then suddenly you get to 2011, and then TCG interest goes somewhere up here. But every time a new game comes out, I still play it. I'm very excited for Legends Arceus. Sorry, not Legends Arceus, the Legends ZA. I'm very excited to play that, and whenever a Pokemon game comes out, I always play it. So my love for the video games is still very much there as like a casual enjoyer of the series, but it's just that the TCG is where the competitive side came.
That's very interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, the different competitive games speak to people in different ways.
Exactly.
Okay, and finally, looking back from now as someone with a shiny new job, someone who's a celebrated trading card game caster, celebrated for cosplaying as well, looking all the way back to young Freya, who was, in Brazil from a young age, getting used to different schooling systems, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Gosh, that's actually really tough. It's something I thought about myself like a long time. I think it would have to be learn how to put yourself first and realize that you can do that without coming off as like selfish. That'll probably be the big thing, because that's still something I struggle with now, in the sense that whenever I try to put myself first, there is that instinct of, there's other people who need something more than you. Like you prioritize everyone else first, and that's something I find really difficult. So I guess it would be to like find a way from an earlier age to realize, no, you can still be the caring and considerate person you are, but at the same time make sure you take care of yourself too. So I think it would have to be that.
Yeah, very sage advice. Well, I think it is of course really important to find that balance, but I think a lot of people will be taking a lot away from that advice. So thank you very much for that, Freya. And the chat doesn't end there. If you want to hear Freya's Rapidash round, where I ask Freya bonus questions that they haven't prepared for, things like what's Freya's favourite trading card game card based on the art? Who does Freya support in Formula One, for example? Then hop on over to the Patreon and you can subscribe there. Of course, I really appreciate the fact that you've listened to this episode, whether you're on the Patreon or not, so thank you so much for doing that. In the Rapidash round, we tend to find that we've barely scratched the surface with the guests. I very much hope to see you over there, but of course, again, no problem if not. The Patreon will be linked below. And Freya, thank you so much for coming onto the show. So many interesting things to digest from what you've said, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise with you. Thank you so much for having me on, Charlie. It's been just a pleasure from my side, and it's been really wonderful to get to do this. It genuinely means a lot.
I'm really pleased, and we see each other at these events, and now we have that little deeper level, I guess, of
absolutely
of getting to know each other. So thank you so much. And if people want to keep up with you online, Freya, where can they find you?
So if you want to keep up with my TCG stuff, that would be at Xanatu VPR. That's XANATU VPR. If you want to keep up with my furry escapades and shenanigans, that's at Viperderg, and so that's VIPERDERG. And that's on X, also on Blue Sky. If anyone uses the Blue Sky, is on there, and on Instagram as well. I'm Xanatu VPR there. yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, but it's not very active right now, so probably cross that bridge when come to it later. But yeah, my main presences right now are on X and Blue Sky.
Fantastic. Make sure you go and follow along with Freya there. And if you've enjoyed the show, then again, you can follow along on the socials for my personal account, Chazingdra, or Chazingdra Chats on X as well. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, the YouTube channel where you might be watching now, unless you're listening on Spotify or Apple. Do get on over there, leave a like and a subscribe. You know what's coming, but it really is all so helpful and important for the growth of the channel and the show. So much food for thought, as we've been saying, that Freya's provided for us. So we'd love to know what you think, as well as what your own dream team of 6 Pokemon would be. Would be really interested to hear that. Do leave a rating or review if you're on the audio apps as well. Those also go a long way. And the aim of the show is to unite everyone in the Pokemon community, you know, whether that's competitive or casual players or beyond. You can use the hashtag Chazingdra Chats or the hashtag 6Pokemon 1 Life Story and have an array of guests, really diverse interests. So the show really is for anyone. If you have any suggestions for guests, then you can get in touch with the socials I mentioned or chazingdra@gmail.com as well. You can also join my Discord community. It would be a pleasure to welcome you there. Next week is going to be Pokemon Go NAIC Champion Out of Pocket. Cannot wait to get their insight on the game. Make sure you're tuning in. Episodes drop every Wednesday. And now, Freya, it's time for your Rapidash round. So if you're not joining us over on Patreon for that, then it's goodbye from Freya.
Goodbye and much love.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon, 1 life story. Okay, Freya, how are you feeling about these bonus questions?
I'm so ready.
Okay.
Hit me. Let's do it.
Really pumped. Okay, so